Hello and welcome to Stretty News TV. I've got a Manchester City fan here with us now at the Etihad Stadium. It's Rob Pollard, the Bleacher report, Manchester City's correspondent, and he also edits a blog called Typical City. How are you, Rob?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. What do you make of your season so far?
It's stalled a little bit since the end of January. I think when we went to Spurs and won 5-1, I think that was probably the last time that we played really well. But before then, it's the best football I've seen since I've been following City. Some of the football we played was just absolutely fantastic. And then we've already got a trophy in the bag, and we've got a chance. We've still got a chance at winning the title. So I'd say it's been a great season so far.
I'm going to run through the squad on the base this season. We're going to start with some of the forwards. And I believe City would be doing far more better if it wasn't for Aguero being out more often. If he was in the team, I think it'd help you out. And what do you make of the other forwards? Obviously, Negredo's come in. And Negredo, for me, as a target man, he has everything.
Yeah. Negredo, his form has dried up massively in recent weeks, but prior to his shoulder injury, which seems to have caused him a lot of problems, he was fantastic. I mean, he is a target man, you are right to say that, but there's more to his game. He's got a fantastic touch and great vision and a great brain. He's a really intelligent player, and if we can kind of get him anywhere near back to the form that he was in prior to sort of a month, 6 weeks ago, then we'll be very strong in the run-in. You're right about Aguero as well. I think we've missed him because he's been injured 3 times now. He's missed about 2 months collectively of the season. And he's our best striker, so we've missed him hugely.
And Dzeko?
Jack, I mean, he's very hit and miss. When he's on his game, sometimes he can look really good. He's another one who can, have a nice touch, and he can hold the ball up, and he certainly scores goals, Dzeko. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But too often, his body language is all wrong, and he can come across as being quite a lazy player at times, which is something that obviously the City fans don't like. So yeah, he's very hit and miss, Edin Dzeko. He's not an awful player, but he's not great.
Moving on to the midfield now, we're going to talk about a player that I don't quite remember admiring a City player as much as I do David Silva.
Yeah.
I think everybody has a bit of a soft spot for him because he plays the game the way you want everyone to play the game. He's so technically gifted, he's small and he just glides around the pitch. There's a few of those in the game right now, but Silva has that touch above most. And obviously as well you got Nasri, who's done a lot better this season than he has, and you got Yaya Toure, and Fernandinho, that's fitted in perfectly alongside Yaya. Midfield seems to be a very strong point for City.
The midfield is very strong. When them 4 players that you've just mentioned, when they're all fit, it's very strong. I mean, Silva, he is the best. I've been following City for about, since '94. Basically, that was when I got my first season ticket, and he's the best player I've seen by quite some distance. Actually, he's just fantastic. Nasri, like you say, at the end of last season, I'm not ashamed to admit that at the end of last season I would have been happy to see him leave the club because he was so poor last year, and he really looked like a player who was going to leave, and I've never seen a turnaround like it. He has genuinely been one of our top sort of 3 or 4 performers this season. And then Fernandinho has been our player of the year. If the season was to sort of end now, I would say he would probably edge Silva for the Player of the Year award. And Yaya, I just think is fantastic. I know there's a section of City support that kind of, I don't know, they're not fully sold on Yaya. They think he's lazy and they think he's this, that, and the other. But from where I'm standing, he's an absolutely, he's got the X factor. There's not many players like Yaya Toure, and the fact that we have,
he's incredibly difficult to play against.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you would do when he's on his 4. I don't know how you stop him when he's on his game, because sometimes he can just pick up the ball, and once he moves, he just seems to pick up pace and get quicker the more, the further up the field he goes. And he's so strong, and he's scored about 15 goals as well this year, which has been another key improvement to his game. So yeah, you're right. In midfield, we are our first choice 4 is really strong.
Oh, it's interesting how you mentioned he scored 15 goals for you as a midfielder, and looking at United right now, I think it's an area we really need to sort out, that we're not getting those goals midfield.
Yeah.
And you look at City and you see that class the City have. And looking at the table, you're fourth now, and Arsenal obviously getting a trimming as we speak. Today, you're likely to win, and you're probably to go into third place. Onto the defence, it's caused you a few issues this season. I know Company, there's no slating Company as a performer. He's just he's something else. He's top class. Alongside you, Tim Michaelis, you've Les Scott at times.
Yeah.
Is that an issue? Is that why City are not up amongst the top?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right. Company is, I would say, is the best individual defender in the Premier League, but Chelsea have got a better back four, and they certainly defend better as a team. So I think that has sort of bridged the gap, if you like. We're far better going forward, I think, than Chelsea. They've not got a proper striker, but I think that as a back four, we're not fantastic. We've got a problem at left back. Clichy's form has dipped this year. He was very good last year, but his form's dipped. Kolarov, I've never been completely sold on. Demichelis, like you say, he's not been great. I do think that there's been a bit of a witch hunt and a scapegoating going on where he's concerned, and he's nowhere near as bad as a lot of the people in the media and a lot of City fans would tell you. He's not been that bad, but he is slow.
It's funny because in the second leg against Barcelona, I watched it, and I know he made a mistake near the end of the first half or the start of the second half. Before that, he was quite good. He was comfortable on the ball.
Well, it was one of his best games, yeah.
And I was waiting for the commentators to even comment on it, and there was no one, even on Twitter, there was no one saying it. And it's like you're waiting for him to mess up, but then when he plays well, it's totally ignored. And you see a lot of players like that. On to Zabaleta, arguably the best right back in the league.
Yeah. Oh, I think he's the best right back in the league by quite some distance. The last 2 years, that guy has just been absolutely unbelievable. You know, when he first came, every City fan loved him straight away because he was like running around like a madman and flying into challenges. But City fans forget this, but he was a bit of a liability. He wasn't fantastic. And when we played him at fullback a few times, and he'd get beaten in one-on-one situations all the time. And in midfield, he was capable of sort of, you always felt he was going to get sent off. The last 2 seasons, he has been absolutely phenomenal. He really has, and I don't see a better right back in the Premier League at all.
Now, an area I've been looking to go on to is the next one. Joe Hart and goal. He's made a few blunders this season, but I think the important factor with Joe Hart is he's still very young. Yeah, and he's shown in the past what he's capable of, and he can go through. There's a few stories going around this year that off the pitch incidents or whatever, but I really wouldn't rule him out of getting behind that and showing what he's capable of.
Well, I think that what you're touching on there, that in 2010, 2011, he was absolutely class. He really was, and I think that the memory of that has bought him a bit of time. I think if it had been any other keeper, or a keeper who hadn't shown that ability in the past, when his form hit the skids, we probably would have got rid of him, but because of how good he was and the memory of that, we've kind of persevered with him. And I think that taking him out of the side for that sort of 6-week period that we did do him a lot of favours, because although he's not back to the level that he was when he was absolutely ripping up trees, he's been far, far better than he was at the start of the season, because he was becoming a massive problem for us. I mean, if we don't win the league, if we miss out on the league by 2 or 3 points, we're going to be looking back at the Villa game, the Cardiff game, the Chelsea game, where it was his errors that cost us the points. Yeah. And we're going to be looking back on that and thinking that was probably where the title was lost.
Obviously, we talked about City, and there's a number of strengths inside and there's a number of weaknesses. When you look at the United team, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, they don't scare me quite. United don't scare me quite like they used to, I must admit. But I still think you've got some absolutely top players. I mean, your manager doesn't seem to be using them right, though, for my money. Particularly Juan Mata, who, everybody knows how good he is. And I remember when he was signed, a lot of people were saying, well, that's not a position United need to buy a player in. But my argument with that was, when a player of that ability becomes available, you've got to go and get him. And I think that yeah, just to see him sort of wasted in sort of wide right, wide left positions or whatever, it's criminal to me. You need to get him close to a striker and get him in an area of the pitch where he can do a lot of damage, because he's a fantastic player. I think Januzaj is arguably, in terms of potential, he's probably the number one in the league. So you've got a great, that's a great thing for United. Van Persie, I know he's injured now, but obviously he's top draw when he's playing well. And I know the United fans have their reasons for not particularly liking Wayne Rooney, but I also think he's a great player as well. So, you've got a couple of players in the right positions, and I don't think United would be too far off from being back in the kind of the mix in the top four. But obviously, this season's been a disaster, hasn't it? You've got to be honest with yourselves and say that the manager has failed spectacularly, and I don't think anybody thought he would do quite as
that's
badly
the thing.
as
We all expected it. Our ambitions were really lowered when he came in, expectations, but we never expected to be this bad.
No, I don't think anybody did, yeah.
And you touched on it there. We have these top players, and he's brought in two players. He brought in Fellaini, he brought in Matza. And Fellaini, there was always talk last season that he was a defensive midfielder. He never really played a lot from there for Everton. But you brought in two players that we know are quality. They have quality. They have good ability. But they're not playing the positions that we've seen them with raw potential in. And you're kind of thinking, look, why have you spent so much money on them if you're not going to play them where we know that's where their strengths are? And there's an argument with Matza, Rooney's there. Well, now that Van Persie's out, I'd like to see Matza in the centre. But obviously, we've looked at both sides. Can we cause City problems on Tuesday night? Do you see any hope for us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't go into any game arrogantly. As a City fan of 20 years, it's hardwired into us to kind of be cautious and not very optimistic. So even now, with United out of form and City playing quite well, I don't go into Tuesday's game thinking this is a banker. I would. I think you could cause us problems. I mean, certainly we're very attacking, and if you can sort of get at us, and if we're not at our game defensively, then teams can cause us problems. We've conceded goals, sloppy goals this year to poor sides. Watford came here in the cup and were 2-0 up at half time, and we didn't play particularly well against Crystal Palace and Stoke. And there's been, I think United can cause us problems.
Can we get a prediction?
We'll win.
Prediction?
I hate predicting. I certainly hate predicting derbies, but since you've asked, I'll say, I don't know, I'd take a 1-0 right now. So, yeah, I'll say 1-0 City.
Right, well, thanks for coming on, Rob.
No
Obviously,
problem.
As I said, Typical City is a blog he edits for. There's a lot of work for Bleacher Report. And on Twitter, he's known as one of the decent Blues. That's why we asked him on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, alright, cheers, Rob. See you again.
Cheers. Take care.